today we are going to start chapter 8, which is about government intervention in international businesses. And what is the role of the governments, how they are supportive to international businesses, if they are not supportive, how they can control, what is the level of control they exhibit, and how much they are facilitating towards international businesses. So government intervention, basically governments intervene in trade and investment to achieve political, social, and economic objectives. So there can be numerous objectives through which they want to control trade and investment. Governments impose trade and investment barriers that benefit interest groups, such as domestic firms, industries, and labor unions. So government's intervention alters the competitive landscape by hindering or helping the ability of firms to compete internationally. So sometimes they can put more import duties, they can put sanctions, they can put some quotas through which they can control the business environment.
Doctor, so the intervention from the government, it can be both positive or negative.
Yeah, but positive means for the local businesses or the agenda which we are talking about. They want to achieve some political, social, or economic objectives. Yes, but most of the time they're trying to protect their local businesses. They can have their other objectives. So it is what we are just trying to learn, what and how they can intervene in the businesses. They do not provide them the equal level field to the international businesses, or do they provide something like that? So government intervention is an important dimension when we are talking about under country risk. So they can be having a protectionism in which national economic policies that restrict free trade, so usually intended to raise revenue or protect domestic industries from foreign competition. And we have seen America putting so much and other restrictions, and recently again we can see that they are just trying to go and impose other certain kind of restrictions on the other businesses. They can also go for the customs, that the checkpoints at national ports of entry where officials inspect imported goods and levy tariffs. So I might have shown you, probably we might have discussed, there was a term, this is called administrative delays. So what they do there was tulip bulbs that were being imported in some country, and because of the custom delays, administrative delays, they practically open each and every box and just try to create delays, so that and we are talking about the past, so that to discourage the import from a particular kind of a country.
Yes, Doctor.
Yes.
Just one question now. You said, for example, for protectionism, you mentioned the recent action from US. How you describe the recent action from US as a protectionism?
Okay.
If you are talking about tariffs and this stuff, because I just need to know how you describe it as a protection, but because from my point of sight, I see it differently. Just can you explain, please?
I think we can discuss it towards the end of today's topic. This is a very interesting question, and that requires a good kind of discussion. So yes, you are very right. We can debate if its action is definitely going to improve the Americans' trade, or it has negatively affected American trade and trades around the world. So this is it has got multiple dimensions. Obviously, it might not be working in the Americans' favor, so that's a very strange kind of behavior or restrictions that are being imposed. So it has a multifaceted kind of implication, not for the world, but also for the America. So yes, it might not be going in favor of America, right? You must have seen that in Chinese companies, they have started telling you that these Gucci bags, these Louis Vuitton bags, which they are selling for $30,000, their actual cost is $1,000, $2,000. You know. So what Chinese are doing is that they are just trying to get their sales done. They are using the brand names of Louis Vuitton, and they are just, because the consumers are already linked with the Louis Vuitton, so they are buying it from China right away. So imagine if they were selling for $30,000 in America, and they were just paying $2,000 to China. So China is still getting the sales, and America might lose it. So yes, you are right. It may not affect in the manner that probably we are just talking about the old school of thought. In old school of thought, there was a behavior in which you used to stop and you control. But later, this concept has been proven a bit wrong. Like America has been trying to protect their cotton industry and their other industries, but they could not protect it. Then ultimately they had to open it up. Okay, so I will listen to your point of view toward the end of this when we'll cover the chapter, because this is going to give us a very interesting discussion on this latest behavior by America. Okay, Mahdi?
Yes, yes. Just because you mentioned that it's
Yeah,
protection.
and that's what they're selling. That they're saying we want to protect America. But is it really like it's the same agenda, or is there maybe some other agenda?
Yeah,
We can discuss.
same what you discussed. Yeah, we can
Yeah,
discuss after we finish from this lecture.
yeah. But my point of view is, does the Americans policymakers have the same agenda? Because apparently it is not working in their favor. Ultimately, it is because later we will learn that all the economies are interlinked, and so that if you are stopping someone else to come to do business, ultimately you are also dependent on the country's business. So in such interconnected international economic system, this is a strange kind of the policy that has just come to. So that is going to be very interesting, and I will look forward to get your feedback on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, they have another tool. They were using it under the name of tariff, which is a tax on imports. So, for example, they had like citrus and textiles, and they used to put some tariffs on it. They can use non-tariff trade barriers like government policies, regulations, or procedures that impedes trades. You can put quotas, like gives quantitative restriction that on imports of a specific product, like imports of Japanese cars. So you can give them like some unit, like you cannot get more than 1,000, 2,000, whatever the quota can be. Investment barriers, you can provide rules or laws that hinder foreign direct investment, like Mexico's restrictions in its oil industry. So they don't want to get the foreigners to have a control of their oil industry. Consequences of protectionism, we can see that it reduced supply of goods to buyers. So ultimately, the concept is that your consumers are going to be suffering, and the way like American and the world is dependent on Chinese products, so we can understand like what are the repercussions going to happen. Ultimately, the consumer might have to pay. The price inflation, so the prices of the products and commodities go high, reduced variety, fewer choices available to buyers, reduced industrial competitiveness. So your industry is not going to be that competitive because it's all economic system that is going to be violated. Various adverse unintended consequences, for example, while the home country there's other countries can race ahead. So if you are putting these quotas, so the others can also respond, what we are observing right now from China and other countries. So a general rationale for government interventions, what they used to follow was that tariffs can generate substantial government revenues. So this is a key rationale for protectionism in underdeveloped economies. So I think we are hearing the same kind of arguments from America helps ensures the safety, security, and welfare of citizens. For example, most countries have basic regulations to protect the national food supply, and they also helps the government pursue broad economic, political, and social objectives for the nation, and they can serve the interest of the nation's firms and industries. And this is the same kind of rhetoric that we are hearing from America when they are trying to use this protectionist behavior. So, a defensive rationale for government intervention. So protection
يعني the
of the.
opposite now.
Sorry, come again.
The opposite now. Defensive.
Yes, rationale for government intervention. So protection of national economy, weak or young economies sometimes need protection from the foreign competitors. For example, India imposed barriers to shield its huge agriculture sector, which employs millions. Protection of an infant industry. So you can have an infant industry and you cannot let your industry to compete with the big giants. So a young industry may need protection to give it a chance to grow and succeed. For example, Japan long protected its car industry. Similarly, you can go for a national security kind of a concept. The United States prohibits exports of plutonium and similar products to North Korea, so because of their rationale that is against their security. National culture identity, like Canada restricts foreign investment in its movie and television industries. This is the French TV. They were making a video, and the concept is given like they are just the French. They are very concerned about their protecting their national culture, so they don't allow other televisions to operate in their country. Okay, offensive rationale for government and intervention. So one was defensive rationales, and some can be offensive rationales, like national strategic priorities. Sometimes you want to protect, help to ensure the development of industries that bolster the national economy, like countries create better jobs and higher tax revenue when they support high value adding industries such as IT, automotive, pharmaceutical, or financial services. They can also trump for the increase in employment perspective. So the protectionist helps preserve domestic job, at least in the short term. However, protected industries become less competitive over the time, especially in global markets, so leading to job loss in the long run. So in the long run, this concept is not being sold. And we have seen in the past that America and other countries, they just try to stop external imports, but ultimately they have to surrender. Okay, so tariffs are widespread, so harmonized cores, the standardized worldwide system that determines tariff amounts. So in developing economies, tariffs are common. In advanced economies, tariffs still provide significant revenue. For example, in a given year, the United States collects more tariff revenues on shoes than on cars. For example, $1.63 billion they earn on shoes as compared to they earn $1.6 billion on cars. The European Union applies tariffs up to 215% on meat, 116% on cereals, and 17% on tennis shoes. So there can be like a difference on the tariffs, and probably it is again to the need of the country in which they are looking for to purchase, and what is the number of units you want to have in your country. Import tariffs have been declining. Governments have reduced tariffs over time, mainly through the General Agreement on Trade and Tariff, which becomes World Trade Organization. Economic integration also lead to low tariffs, but only within economic blocs. For example, NAFTA, Mexico eliminated nearly all tariffs on imports from the United States, but maintains tariffs with the rest of the world. China reduced its tariffs since joining the WTO in 2001. Firms bypass tariffs by entering countries through FDI. For example, Toyota builds factories in the United States partially to avoid tariffs. They can have subsidies. Subsidies are government grants, monetary or other resources to firms intended to ensure their survival or success by facilitating production at reduced prices and encouraging exports. So we can see lots of subsidies and grants are being issued nowadays in Kingdom because of the Vision 2030. So the whole objective by the government is to ensure that their local manufacturers and producers are at par with international standards, and they should not suffer that much with the Vision 2030. So grants include cash, they can have tax breaks, infrastructure, construction, and government contracts at inflated prices. We can learn about this more from Mahdi towards the end of the lecture, like what are the different grants and subsidies that are available to Saudi businesses right now. Subsidies are government grants, monetary or other resources to firms intended to ensure their survival or success by facilitating production at reduced prices or encouraging exports. Grants include cash, tax breaks, infrastructure, construction, or government contracts at inflated prices. For example, in China, Shanghai Automotive, around 12 billion annual sales, and numerous other MNCs are partly owned by the Chinese government and receive huge financial resources. Europe and the United States provide a huge agriculture subsidies to farmers. European Union subsidies represent 40% of the European Union budget. So that gives us a picture like how much countries they support their local businesses in order to keep them sustainable. Then is economic freedom is the absence of the government coercion so that the people can work, produce, consume, and invest however they want to. But the index of economic freedom assesses the rule of law, trade barriers, regulations, and other criteria. Virtually all advanced economies are free, and emerging markets are either free or mostly free. So most developing economies are mostly unfree or repressed. So economic freedom flourishes with appropriate of interventions. Too much regulation harms the economy.
So it's good, Dr. not to have the freedom.
No, that's the other way around. They say like the freedom is good. Now the concept which they were selling, and for the whole of the rest of the world we were following. So they were saying the freedom is good. They say the emerging economies are either free or mostly free. So the developing economies are mostly unfree or represented. So they are saying like the developing economies are not good. So they should move toward the freedom so that we can sell our products and services to their markets, That's how they got our economies opened up, and they have made us as their consumer markets. They can be having an import substitute versus export-led development. So we can go for import substitute is a policy of restricting imports in order to protect home country firms. It was widely tried in Latin America in the 1950s in an effort to promote industrializations and economic development. But most countries eventually rejected import substitutes. By contrast, they have preferred export-led development, was tried in Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, South Korea, and other Asian countries. This model, which encouraged the development of export-intensive industry, proved very successful and led to rapid economic growth and high living standards. So one is a negative, like in which you are just trying to push the people for the local whatever that is available. Another is a positive approach in which you are trying to develop products and trying to be competitive in the world by selling your own products and services. So the evolution of government interventions, how they have evolved, like protectionist tendency, the Great Depression and isolation shaped early 20th century's world trade. Then the Smoot-Hawley Act 1930 raised United States tariff to more than 50% compared to only 3% today. Then progressive trade policies reduced tariff under World War II. In 1947, 23 nations signed the General Agreement on Trades and Tariff. In the GATT, they reduced tariffs through continuous worldwide trade negotiation. They created an agency to supervise world trade and created a forum for resolving trade disputes. The GATT introduced the concept of most favored nations, renamed normal trade relations, according to which each member nation agreed to extend the tariff reductions covered in the trade agreement with one country to all other countries. A consensus to one becomes a concessions to all. So in 1995, the GATT was superseded by the
GATT stand for
WTO.
what?
There was a general agreement on trade and tariff that was, they just developed it after the Second World War, sorry. When America sealed this opportunity, like now we can control the world through the trade, so they just try to harness the world trades and tariffs. So initially they made it under the name of GATT, and later on in I think 1995, sorry, they call it WTO, World Trade Organization, and they grew it to 150 nation countries. So the GATT and WTO presided over the greatest global decline in trade barriers in the history. So they've been campaigning to decrease the tariffs around the world. So the next step was market liberalization in China. In 1949, China established communism and centralized economic planning. Agriculture and manufacturing were controlled by inefficient state-run industries. The country was long closed to international trade. In 1980, China liberalized its economy. In 2001, China joined the WTO. China is now a key member of the World Trade System. Market liberalization in India. Following independence from Britain in 1947, adopted a quasi-socialist model of isolationism and government control. High trade barriers, state intervention, a large public sector, and central planning resulted in poor economic performance. In the 1990s, markets opened to foreign trades and investment. State enterprise were privatized. Protectionism has declined, but high tariffs averaged around 20% and FDI limitations remain there. Intervention and global financial crisis. So the crisis raised new questions about the government's role in businesses and the world economy. The crisis arises largely from inadequate regulations and enforcement of current regulations in the banking and finance sector. In response, governments around the world are increasing regulation and examining ways to improve enforcement. So, United States government increased the power of its Treasury Department, the Federation, and FED and FDIC. The European Union increased oversight of multinational banks and financial institutions. The United Nations called for more transparency in financial activities and closure of loopholes that allow excessive speculation in global finance. Some governments increased protectionism. Russia raised tariffs on cars and combine harvesters. Governments increased subsidies. The European Union granted more than 50 billion to add to Daimler, which is a German, and Skoda, which is Czech Republic, and other car makers. How funds should respond to government intervention? So this is a big question for the funds, especially when you are an exporter. So because if you happen to find yourself into a country which is very protectionist, so what should you do? So the first step is research to gather knowledge and intelligence. So understand trade and investment barriers abroad, scan the business environment to identify the nature of the government intervention. Then based on this data, choose the most appropriate entry strategy. Like most firms, choose exporting as their initial strategy. So if high tariffs are present, other strategies should be considered, such as licensing or FDI and joint ventures that allows the firms to produce directly in their market. You can also take advantage of foreign trade zones. So foreign trade zones are areas where imports receive a preferential tariff treatment. So intended to stimulate local economic developments. For example, a successful experiment with FTZ has been maquiladoras, which is export assembly plants in northern Mexico.
This is a company, FTZ.
Maquiladoras, they just call it export. It's this place name is, I think, Maquiladoras, which is export assembly plants in northern Mexico. So they can seek favorable customers. We have FTZ in Dubai, UAE as well. Do we have FTZ here in Saudi Arabia? You can seek favorable customer classification for exported products. So reduce exposure to trade barriers by ensuring that products are classified properly. Okay, so take advantage of investment incentives and other government support programs. Like the government of Hong Kong put up much of the cash to build the Hong Kong Disney Park, and Mercedes-Benz received several $100 million in subsidies to build a plant in the United States of Alabama. So lobby for free trade and investment. Like increasingly nations are liberalizing markets in order to create jobs and increase tax revenues. Okay, so this is today's topic. So you're welcome to discuss any questions, and especially Mahdi. Please give your points so we can discuss on that. American latest protectionist behavior.
My question here, when you say it's a protection, actually, for example, let's say they have an agent there of a Chinese for tires or something in America, and he have, like, let's say 300, because I have one of my friends, he has this 300 employee there. Now, after what's happening, he stopped activity. What's the benefit will add? This 300 employee already now without a job, and he don't have any deal. Actually, if you go to China now, most of the brands, most of the people which they are exporting or import from China, they stop. They don't have deal. There is one expo now. It's going on there. When we ask them, do you have that order from US nowadays? They are saying no. Most of them, they are stopped dealing with us. That's mean the effect in US itself, it's gonna affect their employment rate as well, and also gonna affect the purchase power there.
Yes, you're right. You're talking about the effect the purchasing power in America as well. Madi.
Yes, it's as I said, it's not only purchase power, even the employment rate. There,
Yeah, definitely.
يعني, for example, if you are agent or you are agent of any company in China, in US, that means you are bringing the product and you have
Yeah.
employee there and all this stuff. When you stop doing this, that means what's gonna happen for this employee? When there is, if you are talking about 125% in tariff, how this protectionism in US
That's
trade?
yeah, that's why it is very funny when we see these kind of laws being passed in America, because I remember there's a documentary I will share with you about the Walmart and the Walmart success. You know, Walmart, when you see the documentary, Walmart is a giant that is controlling the American economy. So they say like Walmart, one annual sales volume was much higher than the mobile industries and Microsoft and like number of industries, you know. So that is a big giant. And Walmart's success was majorly because of the reason that they are importing millions of dollars of imports from China. So that's how they are able to sell to American consumers. So I remember that in this documentary, they interview one port in America, and the quantum of imports from China were like 33 billion US dollars imports on one port. And then the interviewer asked the port manager, "What are the exports in for us to China?" They say only 1 million or 1 billion or 2 billion of exports to China. And then the interviewer says, like, we feel like we are the third world country. So having said this, if you take this consumer markets or all the other things, so when you are trying to create these kind of tariffs, which we have just discussed during the whole lecture, that these are counter effective. These are not productive for the consumers, for the choices that they have. So definitely it's going to have a huge impact on the American economy and vice versa on the world economy, because we know that the world economy is interconnected. So we discussed about the great financial crisis that we have experienced, I think, during 2001, 2, and that was just in IT industry, and the whole IT industry in the world that has got its repercussions. So obviously, yes, it's going to affect American consumers and the businesses within America and the rest around the world. So this is a strange kind of initiative. Let's hope like how it's going to end up, because we can't see that any positive is coming out of this, other than like America losing lots of grounds which they used to have for the businesses. So they must have their own calculations done. This is a new case study in itself. Probably we'll learn like how would they get benefit at the end of the day. So I remember there was a seminar in which there was a technologist, and he was talking like these developed economies are very cleverly shifted from these consumer products to like big tech products. Like they are into software, they are into financial things, they sell Boeing airlines. So he was of the belief that if you compare the trade between China and America, so see like China is producing Nike shoes. So imagine how many Nike shoes they have to sell to buy one Boeing airline. So I believe they must have placed themselves in such a favorable position from where they would see like ultimately it's going to be beneficial for them, which we can't see it right now. The way you are sharing your personal experience, that suggests that is going to have a negative impact not only on America, on the worldwide economies. Anybody else would like to add something to this or share their personal experience? How did they see it? Okay, I think it's done for today. And
Well, thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you so much.
have a nice, good meal at night. Take care of yourself, inshallah. See you next class.
Thank you. Good
See
night.
you, inshallah.
See you,
Thank
inshallah.
you.
Okay, wassalam.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, you can leave the forum now.
Hi, Doctor.
Hello, Muhammad. كيف الحال?
Tamam. How are you, Doctor? Good.
Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. Were you able to join
You
the
didn't
session?
start yet?
No, I'm just done with the session.
Really? You
Yeah,
said a 30-minute break.
no, 7:30.
Oh,
That was we started at 7:30.
okay.
and we had like how much, 42 minutes. Yeah, I made the recording. I guess I'll upload the recording for you guys, inshallah.
Okay, maybe I heard you wrong. You said 30 minutes break, and then we're gonna go to the next session.
Yeah, I said like 15 minutes, and then they were still talking. Then I said like 12 minutes, and then I said like on 7:30. So basically, what happened is I have made two sessions. One is from 6 to 7:30. Another is from 7:30 to 9.
Yeah, yes, I was there in the first session.
Mhm. But your signals are very weak
Okay,
right now.
no problem.
Yeah? Okay, Tariq. Muhammad, sorry, Muhammad Mafi.
Okay,
Oh, Muhammad, take care of
okay,
yourself.
Muhammad. Okay.
Okay.